All right, welcome back. James here, talking about this video is about GammaWorld Second Edition. Now, GammaWorld Second Edition is, in my opinion, mechanically, as far as playing the game, the best version of the game. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have some flaws. And one of its major flaws is that there's no real way other than equipment for your character to advance. That's how your character advances. You find artifacts, and by finding these artifacts, your character hopefully doesn't blow themselves up, but instead actually learns how to use the artifacts. And then now your character is more powerful because instead of starting the game with a hatchet and a musket, they now have, some kind of sci-fi super weapon. That's cool and all, but it doesn't really represent the fact that characters learn, they evolve, they adapt over time to different situations. And also, even more importantly, a lot of players find games where there's no real character improvement except for equipment to be not as fun as games where things can improve. If you look at an example of this, like BRP, it has the more you use a skill, the more likely the skill is to advance. That is an amazing system. It really is. It's a good system. If you look at Gamma World Second Edition, it hasn't even got skills. There are no skills, except for the ones that are given for different races. Like, pure strain humans get a couple skills in, how to deal with robots and stuff like that. But at ultimately, yeah, your character's entire line of improvement is based on whether or not they find certain equipment and survive to figure out how to use it. That is not just to the average player, to me personally, a very unsatisfactory way to do it, to handle that particular thing. Now, I remember playing Traveler way back in the day. Classic Traveler, the little black books. I say LBBs, and people always think I mean the OD and D books. And little side note here, that annoys the shit out of me because everyone knows back in the 80s and 90s, when someone said the LBBs, they meant the little black books that came in the box set for Classic Traveler, right? And now, right, very recently, the D&D players in the OSR that like um, OD&D have started taking that over to mean the LBBs, the little something brown books. But I want the world to know that they stole that from Traveler, guys. That was stolen from Traveler. Traveler was always referred to back in the original time as the LBBs, the little black books. And the biggest issue Traveler had, and a lot of players had this issue, and things were added, of course, over time, was that there was no way for your character to really improve. There was a mechanic by which you could say your character is working out, and um, by spending like X amount of time per day doing something, working out, studying, whatever, you could raise an attribute by one, or maybe a skill or something. But it was maybe a more realistic version of how to level a character up, but again, not super satisfying when you play, a bunch of missions and your character just really never gets very much better at anything. Except, see, Traveler did it this way. In Traveler, it was, well, one is about just playing the game and having a good time. And there's something to be said for that, sure. And two, it was about money. The whole point of Traveler, your whole how is your character doing compared to every other character in the world, really boiled down to money. Um, and again, it's like, what about players at your table who are less concerned with money and more concerned with developing a character from, a young, wanderer that's wandering around the space lanes, bumming about, doing his thing, and then eventually over time and training and etc gets better at various different skills. Maybe he becomes a pretty decent pilot, right? And maybe he becomes very skilled at some other skills, say combat with a laser sword or something. My point is, by taking player advancement and improvement out of the game, you're actually destroying character arc. You're destroying some of the basic premises behind a character. Like, the above example, the local farm boy who, he was okay at bullseyeing womp rats in his freaking speeder or whatever, but eventually, through training and skill and adventuring and stuff like that, he literally becomes a space wizard who's good with a lightsaber and can use force powers and can do all these other, amazing things. Well, in Traveler, unless you start the game that way, you're probably just never going to be that way. And yeah, that is a problem. That is an issue that needs to be handled. And GammaWorld does the same thing, which I said this in a live stream, but since I'm just making a video for, maybe a half hour, while I paint a couple miniatures up, what makes no sense about it is the other kind of science fiction, sci-fi, whatever game that they released in the same time period. Star Frontiers has a definite system for skill advancement and the whole nine yards. You start out with your attributes and your PSA, your primary skill, and then as you level up, you can advance and learn new skills and everything like that. Hell, you can even learn skills that aren't in your primary skill. um, I would say MOS, really. You can actually start maybe dabbling in other people's primary skill loadouts. And that is as it should be. So, how do you fix it? Well, here's how I fixed it. Rather than introducing classes to a classless system, because I don't like that at all, what I've decided to do is I've decided what I'm going to do is still borrow, be heavily inspired by uh, Casimir Urbanski. I know that's not his real name, but I'm going to use his trade name because it's just polite and nice to do. And I'm going to create a couple of like thresholds, like for every however many XP characters gain, they get to mark off their level or their advancement, whatever, or whatever it is, right? And then they will roll a die on a chart. There might even be multiple charts, and I might actually allow them to choose the chart they want to roll on, right? And then they'll get that bonus. I personally really am a huge fan of that. I've been a huge fan of that since Lion and Dragon, and I'm a huge fan of that in one of my favorite games of all time, Baptism of Fire. So, also, these are games, I mean, if you ever wanted to play a game that is set in a mythological Slavic world where there is a battle or a lot of tension between the old religions the pagans used to believe in and Christianity, and you can be like a big part of that, set in Poland, but also bordering, the Kievan Rus and all that, in the time of Vladimir the Great, and shortly after the death of Saint Olga and all that, right? Then that's the game for you. And when you level up, and this is where I'm getting my ideas from, depending on the class you chose, whether you're a thief, a ranger, a holy warrior, a priest, a bard, which they're not called bards, they're called like slum, they're really the lowest caste in society. um you roll on a chart, and that tells you whether you learn a new spell, get attribute bonus, attack bonuses, and it's different for each class. So instead of making it different for each class by making like 3 charts and letting the players choose which chart they want to roll on, then it allows the players to control, at least to some degree, um, what their character will be better at. Let's say we have one thing that really leans into skill based things. So that's where you're going to get your bonuses to saves, which in GammaWorld, it would be you get +1 to your mental strength versus, mutant powers, or you get +1 to your physical strength versus poisons or whatever it is, right? And the character sheet, there's plenty of room on it. So as the player gains whichever abilities that they want, they just write it down on their sheet and move on with their life. We might have one sheet where, you get a bonus with a weapon. Or if you roll really, really good, maybe you'll get a bonus with an entire class of weapons. So let's say the moderate roll gives you a +1 with a weapon of your choice. And I would have it where it's got ranged and melee weapons separate. So that, yeah, if you've got a guy who specializes in range attacks, but they roll and they get now you get +1 to a melee weapon. That's actually a good thing because it will cause the player to expand their character. You know what I mean? In ways maybe they even didn't think of, right? And then the third thing is going to be the skill thing, right? So you can see where I've been influenced by not only Traveler, but Baptism of Fire, right? And by the skill thing, I mean the third thing will be like bonuses to common skills that aren't even in the game, but honestly really should be. So you might have a character roll on that skill chart and get +1 to survival. Pick which type. Wilderness survival, desert survival, ruin survival, or +1 to figuring out how artifacts work, or +1 to mountain climbing, or whatever it is, maybe even throw a couple of thief-like skills in there. So maybe the character will get a +1 to, moving quietly, a +1 to, because, the moving stealthily thing might actually just be a dex check with a penalty. But now you've got a character that's got bonuses to it and therefore could offset those penalties. You could have a very stealthy character, cruising about doing his thing, right? And then, of course, add the rule where the characters can roll twice at random or pick one of their choice. I like that. And that's, I believe, in Baptism of Fire. I think it's definitely a Casimir Urbanski design decision, because if a character, and I keep saying character when I mean player, I apologize. If a player really, really wants their character to be better with their, I don't know, shotgun or whatever, then when they do go up that level, they can just say, look, I'm going to roll, or not, I'm going to go my roll and just go ahead and be better with my shotgun. So I'm going to pick the +1 to hit with my shotgun. Cool. Right. Everything's great. Everyone's loving it. Everyone's having a great time, right? Or they could roll on that chart, the one that's likely to give bonuses to attack rolls and saving throws and stuff like that. They could get lucky and get the bonus to ranged weapon and another bonus, right? So me personally, I would always take the 2 rolls over, the picking, but whatever, right? And so their character could turn out even better, if they take the risk. But the negative is they could end up rolling, bonus to saving throw twice. So now instead of being, more proficient with their shotgun, they're maybe just more resistant to poison or something. Which, I mean, honestly, in the GammaWorld, that's an amazingly great thing, because being able to add a modifier to your PS when you're comparing on the matrix versus poison levels, yeah, that's a good thing. That's a thing that could keep your ass alive in a lot of situations. I mean, poison, radiation, stuff like that in this game has a D effect. And that D effect, the D stands for dead reroll character. So the fact that you could possibly end up with a character that doesn't have to be dead and reroll character, yeah, that's a good thing. That's a thing that, 1 out of 1 DM James really approve of that message, right? Because in my opinion, it doesn't matter how skilled you are with a gun if you're dead. And therefore, sometimes it is better for the character and the player to have a character that can actually survive a lot of trials and tribulations, rather than a character that is going to die, the second that, if you're wondering why I'm painting, it's these various mutated beetles and stuff. And I'm painting them with this Vallejo Express Black Lotus, which is a really strange color because it looks black, but it definitely has very, very green or blue-green undertones. I'm taking a break from Dune because I'm in a position where most of my armor is broken, and I'm going to have to make a run back to my house. I may have to actually make some new armor pieces. I got involved in a mission that I was not equipped for, where I was wearing a still suit instead of actual combat armor, and I got worked big time by, the NPCs. But I still did pretty good. I mean, there's a number of them I need to kill, and I'm well past 2/3 of that. So anyway, so that's what I'm thinking of doing. And like on one of the charts, like, or maybe on all of the charts, I will have one entry that's just character gains one hit die. So that no matter what happens, no matter how things go, there's always a chance that your character will gain some hit die. And I'm a huge fan of that idea, honestly. I mean, it doesn't like make anything weird, but it definitely is something I think that a lot of players will appreciate, especially if they're doing the whole I'm going to roll random. I mean, if they roll the get an additional hit die twice on a level, I mean, that's conceivably for mutants and stuff like that an additional 12 hit points. And again, that feels really good to a player, because they're like, okay, my health went up and I get to roll, and boom, now my character went from 36 hit points to 48. That's going to make a big difference in game, and that's kind of what we want. We want leveling to be a memorable, fun event, and being able to either choose or gain skills, hit points, bonuses to attack, saving throws, etc. Those are all really good things. Of course, that also means, it adds a very, very slight level of um, complexity, but not really. I mean, because I can figure out, okay, how do I want to do the hit points? I could just steal the XP chart from the fighter or the thief from Baptism of Fire, and then give out XP as whatever. Or I could do something even more simple and say, every third game that your character survives, you can advance the character. That would be relatively fast character advancement. But because of the possibly random nature of the advancement, I don't think it would throw the game too far out of whack. You know what I'm saying? I think that it would still be balanced, and it would still be something that would make for a good and most importantly fun game. That's the big thing here, right? Is the fun. For a lot of players, defeating a dungeon, that's fun. For a lot of players, finding some crazy new magic item, well, that's what they call fun. But for a lot of players, and it just depends. I'm sure there's a test or something out there that would tell us all what these different player types are. For some players, it's really about, did my character get better? Is my character better at something, important? And so, yeah, I'm going to also a lot of the skill things like I previously mentioned, like a character gets a bonus to their survival skill, right? I'm going to use skills. I will probably use like proficiencies where a skill will be, at least in my mind, linked to an attribute. And as the players, do skills, they will roll their die 20 versus attribute. Um, like in AD&D and OSC and stuff like that. Why? Because that's literally my favorite game mechanic ever. Just the straight up roll versus your attribute. It's simple, elegant. It makes sense. I mean, if a character's trying to do a feat of strength, what makes more sense than having the character roll versus their strength, you know, and seeing if they can do it or not? The answer, of course, is nothing. Nothing makes more sense than that. You just have them make that roll, and if they make it, good, and if they don't make it, not good. If you want to throw some bonuses on because maybe some friends are helping, you can do that. You are the game master, so you can make all the rules. And this whole conversation is my thoughts on that. Now, at some point, I'll sit down with my computer, my other one, and I'll talk to it about these ideas, and I'll put it to voice to text so that it'll write them down. And just so I have a record on my computer of what in the hell I'm thinking of, right? And at some point I'll bust out my wilderness survival guide and some of my other games so that I can look through them for decent skill types and stuff like that. I mean, I really don't think I'm going to have much of a problem. I mean, if a character, gets learn a skill, then they can look at the list. And if their character, for some reason, decides, hey, I want to be really good at lighting fires, well, then, they write down the start fire skill +1. And then we decide, well, what is that going to be based on? Uh, you know, attribute wise from one situation to the next. I mean, or the player says, I would like to become better at tracking. Well, okay, write down tracking and put +1. And depending on the attribute we're using, on that particular roll, you get to add 1 to that attribute, roll the die 20. And if you roll under your attribute, then you succeed in tracking something. Hunting, that would be another amazing thing. I mean, think about it. I mean, this is the world after some sort of super effed up war happened. I mean, the people who are surviving today, they don't even really know what happened. So it might as well be Greyhawk, one empire did the invoke destruction and the other empire unleashed the rain of colorless fire. You could almost just say that and be like, okay, you know? Um, and then like me, because I like more modern sci-fi, I plan on throwing in, some uh there's nanite clouds, and sometimes the skies rain red, almost blood like stuff. Uh, maybe it's not blood, but then again, maybe it is. But you definitely don't want to get caught out in it. So I'm going, even though GammaWorld, a lot of players play as a campy game, I'm going a little bit more serious with my GammaWorld campaign when I play it. the world is really going to be the player's most potent nemesis. It will be the world that they live in, you know. So that's why I think, yeah, it's important that the characters have the means to become better at surviving in the world they find themselves in. So if that means, you know, they learn survival skills and stuff like that, fine. I mean, I'm even considering, because I am a nice DM overall, uh, before the game begins, allowing the players the choice of picking from one of the skills or rolling twice, just to start the game with the characters having that one more advantage because of the difficulty of the game, you know. So I don't know. That's what I might do. The video's just over 31 minutes, so I'm going to cut it there. If you are a GammaWorld player and you have ideas about things, let me know. Another game I actually really considered running, but then didn't was uh, what's it called? Crawford makes it. It's like After Dust or something like that. But I wanted to play the GammaWorld game specifically. So yeah, that's what we're doing. Now, will I steal some ideas from him? Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably steal some ideas from him, Kevin Crawford. But that's all I got to say about that. And that's all I got to say about that. If you like the video, well, you know what to do. And more importantly, if you are a huge GammaWorld fan and you see anything I've mentioned as being a huge mistake, or there's a better way to do it that doesn't include, maybe you should just play 3rd edition or 4th edition because I don't want to. I would love to see some comments below. There are not many of us GammaWorlders out there, so we got to stick together. Anyway, peace and love, and God bless. Good gaming, and until I make another video, I salute you. SPQR.